Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
He has released from the hospital. He's here. He's getting treatment. He'll be day to day. We're still gathering information, and what his status is moving forward will be a medical decision, not something that we can really, comment on.
Nick Saban commenting on Monday on sophomore defensive lineman Raekwon Davis of Meridian, Mississippi, after Davis was shot in the right leg early Sunday morning outside of a Tuscaloosa bar. Davis received treatment Monday morning at the football facility after being grazed by what's being called a stray bullet. Davis, who is named a co-starter at defensive end, was not at practice yesterday or today during the media viewing period, so his status for Saturday night's game certainly up in the air. And I tell you what, if he can't go, big number 99 will be missed, Rodney. He has had a terrific fall camp.
Yeah, it definitely has, and they're already, Gary, trying to build depth, so certainly that would be a loss.
It would indeed. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi products, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris, and since it's football season, I've been going diet the last few weeks, but, buddy, I got to tell you, with opening night this Saturday night and the ATL, love that sound, I had to go with full-leaded Pepsi today. That's good. Pepsi, a Southern original. Pick up some the next time you're at your local grocery store or convenience store, because with football season here, you need a little Pepsi to get you going. Just 5 short days away, or actually 4 days away from kickoff at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta against Florida State, with Alabama practicing indoors today in the Hank Crisp facility. Rodney, no reason not to practice indoors since the game is going to be played under the new rooftop there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Although Raekwon Davis was not a participant, running back Josh Jacobs was out on the field. He continues to work with the trainers. That pulled hamstring, we don't know if he'll be able to go. Also, Najee Harris, a little dinged up today, I'm told, at practice. Ahead of the game against Florida State, the Alabama players recognize the anticipation surrounding this huge game, the GOAT, greatest opener of all time, and they know it's going to be a challenge. But Alabama players say they're ready to tackle that challenge head on.
Always exciting to open up the game, and with the competition that we're opening up with, it's going to be a good test to see where we're at as a team, and we're going to be able to just see all the work we put in and see that it's been working out.
Really fast, athletic, strong defense that's going to, obviously pose a lot of challenges for us, and we're looking forward to the challenges that are on the horizon, and hopefully we're going to have a great game.
Well, Rodney, the opener against the Seminoles, the long-awaited opener right around the corner. Now, all the work that's been done during the offseason, during the summer, in fall camp, is being wrapped up. The game plan's being put in place. These last few days before heading to Atlanta, what do you think the Tide should be focusing on as they wrap up preparations?
Well, I think, first of all, Gary, obviously this is the best, I think, opener that they've had in terms of an opponent. They've played several of these neutral site games against some really quality teams. But I think Florida State, you got to be mentally ready for them because they have a ton of athletes. They're going to be well coached. Jimbo Fisher does an outstanding job. And I'm going to tell you, we've talked about this many times before, and I think people forget it. When teams have an opportunity to play Alabama and they have so much time to prepare, Gary, it's like their Super Bowl. And I can tell you, Florida State is going to be mentally prepared for this game.
Yeah, I think you make a great point on the quality of this opponent. I know Alabama fans look back at Clemson in 2008 and Virginia Tech and Michigan and West Virginia and Wisconsin and USC. And the list goes on and on, really, of high-profile teams that Alabama has not just beaten but handled easily in these season opening games. But I do think, I'm with you, this is a different animal. This Florida State team, I think, matches Alabama in terms of size, speed, physical talent, playmakers on the field. I do think they're better than any of those teams that we've mentioned.
Listen, I thought they should have beat Clemson last year, to be honest with you. Me too. And, they really, I don't know what happened to them against Louisville when they gave up 63 points, but they went 10-3. They beat Michigan. in their bowl game. So they've got a great quarterback. You just saw him there, DeAndre Francois. They've got some good skilled people, a couple of really good running backs, Jaquez Patrick, Cam Akers is a freshman to keep an eye on. You know, their offensive line, Gary, has been some issues. Last year, they really had a difficult time protecting Francois. Took a lot of hits.
And on defense, they have a player in Derwin James, the safety, who missed much of last year, who some are saying is the best player in the country, period, regardless of position. I read an article by Andrea Adelson of ESPN that says he could literally play all 11 positions, including interior defensive line. Is this guy that good?
Well, I don't know about interior defensive line, but, you know, he made 91 tackles as a true freshman. I mean, that's pretty good. He'll return kickoffs as well, so he's a multi-dimensional guy. There you see Jaquez Patrick, who is a 230-pound running back, Gary, and a guy that was maybe the #1 running back in the country a few years ago.
All right, Alabama's a pretty good defensive back, too, though, and Mika Fitzpatrick. Don't forget about him. Well, coming up next on TITV, Alabama isn't the only team preparing for the big game. Obviously, Florida State is as well, and we'll catch up with FSU head coach Jimbo Fisher when we come back. And also, and I got a feeling tonight the phones are going to be loaded up with folks wanting to talk football with us. We'll be taking your phone calls at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at WVUA23, TITV at WVUA23.com, or tweet at us using that hashtag TITV. Use the hashtag so we'll see it. We'll be right back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tighter Insider TV. Well, Twitter has been very active as the anticipation grows for Saturday's kickoff. FSU President John Thrasher, I mean, this guy, he's a card now. He spoke to boosters and fans at the annual kickoff luncheon, and it is a kickoff luncheon in all fairness. A reporter quoted him as saying, "I shouldn't talk too much trash, but I think we're going to beat Alabama pretty bad next week. I really do." You're right. You shouldn't talk so much trash. Former FSU quarterback and current Jacksonville Jaguar Jalen Ramsey also got in on the fun, tweeting, "Bama lucky that 13 FSU team didn't get a chance to beat them too." That was the kick 6 year, and Auburn lost to Florida State in the national championship game. Both Landon Collins and Clinton Dix, though, they replied to the tweet, having a little fun there. Those pro football guys, they like to get after each other pretty good. Bragging rights on the line, though, on Saturday night. Welcome back to Tighter Insider Television alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris, just a little south of Tuscaloosa. If you just hightail it down there, you can be in Tallahassee, Florida in no time flat. That's the home of the Florida State Seminoles. And, of course, the Noles preparing for this 1-versus-3 matchup on Saturday night in Atlanta as well. The Seminoles have been busy prepping for September 2nd and the #1 Crimson Tide. Head coach Jimbo Fisher hasn't shied away from stating that the enormity of this matchup is obvious, pointing out that it's a high-risk reward proposition. But he also says that at the end of the day, win or lose, it's just one football game out of 12 on the schedule.
You feel like any other game. At the end of the day, it's one win, one loss. But you know the caliber of the opponent. Just like last year, we had Ole Miss, who people forget was ranked 11th and had a heck of a team. Think if Ole Miss wins the game against us when they got the big lead and wins the game when they're up on Alabama at 20. They were up the same way on Alabama. They win those 2 games, how does that change? You know what I'm saying? Change their season. I mean, that could have been dramatic. I mean, both of us came back on them. So we play good teams. But you know the urgency to play well. But at the end of the day, it's still one game. You got a whole season to play.
You do. And that is the thing. Somebody's going to be disappointed on Saturday night. But win or lose, you got to turn around. You got to play the next week. And you got to play 11 more times plus the postseason. All right, Rodney, a lot has been discussed about the relationship between Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. Clearly, there's a lot of respect. And Coach Saban has said, of all the assistants that he's ever had, Jimbo Fisher was as good as anybody that's been on his staff. But Jimbo said something yesterday. He said, you know, I learned from Coach Saban. I didn't copy. I didn't borrow. I took what I learned, and I have my own ideas of how I want to do things. He's his own man. I think when you look at the Nick Saban disciples that are out there as head coaches, and we'll rattle off a few of them, Jim McElwain, Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart, Martin Antonio, all good coaches. But I think you could certainly argue with a national championship under his belt that Jimbo Fisher is the most successful of all of them.
Well, yeah, successful, sure. And, you know, again, Mark D'Antonio, too. I mean, what he's done at Michigan State's been fantastic, getting them in the playoffs a couple of years ago. But, you know, Jimbo Fisher, I think he's a great coach, Gary, to be honest with you. I really like him. I think he's outstanding. I think he does a great job, you know, calling the plays, developing quarterbacks and all those things. And I think he's really going to challenge that Alabama defense with what he does and his players and how he uses them on Saturday night.
Yeah, and he wants this game for his football team, and he would never say it, but I do get the sense that he would love to be the first former Saban assistant to beat Nick Saban as a
You've been
head coach.
talking about that all week.
Well, I think he wants it. Nobody else that's faced him has been able to do it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, you know, again, you remember Coach Bryant had a What was his record? You know it off the top of your head.
Well, it was good.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
He didn't
to be
lose
honest
often
with
to
you.
him.
I mean, but Nick Saban's very similar, the same way. And listen, Jimbo Fisher has the team that can do it.
Saban and Bryant, both examples. If you can learn from the man,
that's right.
But you still ain't the man.
That's right.
And to beat the man, you got to be on top of your game. All right, Rodney, good stuff. And coming up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information right there on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call at 205-348-9882 so you can get through. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say, your comments, your questions, right after this on Tider Insider Television. And welcome back to Tider Insider Television. I'm Gary Harris. He's Rodney Orr. And I think you know who you are, although I don't seem to know who I am. I guess it's football, It's just got me excited. You ready to take some phone calls and some emails?
Yeah.
All right, let's start off with an email. This comes from Larry, who says, who asked, do you think Alabama has any weaknesses that FSU will attack offensively and defensively? Well, Rodney, certainly they're looking for them. We know that.
What was that question again? I'm sorry.
Does Alabama have any weaknesses that Florida State's looking to exploit?
Man. I tell you what, that's a good question. We haven't seen Alabama play yet, but I would think that if you're FSU, if you're Jimbo Fisher, you might look at that A-Day game, and they may go right after that left cornerback. And listen, I'm not knocking Trevon Diggs. I want to be clear about that.
He's the new guy back there.
He's a new guy. He's a guy that I think Jimbo Fisher will probably just see what he's made out of early, assuming that Trevon Diggs is there. Now Levi Wallace is making a very strong run at that position as well, and he did an outstanding job later in the season last year.
All right, let's go to our first phone call tonight. Sam is with us in Marion County. Hey, Sam, how are you?
Hey, gentlemen, here at last, here at last. Bama football is here at last.
Yes, sir, it is.
They say that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. What is Bama's weakest link, in y'all's opinion?
Oh, gosh. I'll start on this one because I've been saying this the whole fall camp. In my opinion, Sam, it's the kicking game right now, not the punting. Probably not the return game or the coverage game, but the place kicking, I think, has been sporadic at best. I think they're going to have to use more than one kicker, which I don't think is ever good. And I'm worried that the kicking game, if it's a close game, could hurt Alabama. That's just my opinion. Rodney?
No, I think that's a good point, and I think it's a fair one. And we won't know till the game. You have to get a kicker out there and let him try it out there and see how he kicks in front of 80,000 people or 90,000 in a national televised audience. But I look at Alabama right now. I think there's a lot of new faces on that defense. We've talked about that. Listen, they're very athletic. They're very talented. All those guys a lot of them don't have experience. They're lost a lot of leadership. We don't know how they're going to respond. But that would be one thing that would certainly, I would think about, especially going against Jimbo Fisher in this game. And then right tackle offensively. Listen, Matt Womack, I think he's going to do an outstanding job, or Jedrick Wills, whoever's in there. But I think that offensive line has to kind of come together. Yeah,
I'm still a little concerned about right tackle, too, just because neither one of those guys have really done it in a game either. All right, let's go to Bessemer and talk with our buddy John. John, what's up, man?
Gary, what's going on, man?
You know it.
Hey, man, who y'all picking Saturday? Are y'all picking Alabama or Florida State?
Well, you know what, John? We got a little thing called later, John. We got a little thing called our end of the show predictions. So we're going to save that for the end of the show. Then we'll tell you exactly who we're picking and the score that we're picking. We've been doing it for a long time, and we've been pretty good at it. So that's coming up later on in the program. All right, let's we're going to take any more calls? Yeah, we're going to go to the break. We've got more Tider Insider TV coming up. Alabama soccer set a record in Tuscaloosa. That's something you'll want to stay tuned for. Plus, more phone calls on the way. Again, there's the number. Jot it down. TITV. Coming back with more of your calls, emails, and tweets right after this timeout. The football game isn't the only reason that Bama fans are talking about Florida State. What about that Tide soccer team upsetting the number 6 Noles on Sunday 1-0? It's the Tide's first win over a top 10 team in program history. And you know what? Wes Hart came from Florida State to Alabama. How about that? Look at that. Going around with handshakes after the game. The win boosted Alabama's record to 4-1 on the season. They're now in the top 25. Great start for the Tide. I tell you, that guy can coach. He can really, really coach. All right, more phone calls on the way, but first let's get to Twitter. And this tweet came in from Mike C _ T-Town. Balanced is this year's offensive identity. Your thoughts? Balance. Yeah, I think that's probably, Mike, to be honest with you, the identity that offenses want every year, if they can have it. I mean, a balanced offense is difficult to deal with from a defensive perspective, and I think with Brian Dable, that's exactly what he wants. And I'll say this. I think against Florida State, in my opinion, Rodney, I think they're going to be a little run heavy. I still think that's where they can attack Florida State. I know they want to throw the ball and dictate to Florida State's defense, but I don't think they're going to throw it over about 25 times. I think they're going to really try to pound the ball against that Seminoles front.
Oh, I think you're right, and I think that's a good idea with all those running backs. Certainly, that's where they want to start with the run. But again, you can start with the run, but still be balanced and utilize all your personnel, and I think that's what they want to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, Mike, when offensive coordinators talk about balance, it's not whether or not there's 40 run plays and 40 pass plays. It's can we do what we want to do on our terms against your defense? And mixing it up helps you to do that. All right, let's go to the phones and talk with Rick over in Bluff Park. What's up, Rick?
Hey, fellas. How y'all doing this evening?
Very well.
Well, I appreciate you taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask you about Robert Foster. This guy has taken his lumps.
He has.
Paid his dues. Is he set for a breakout season? And also, Josh Jacobs, did I hear that he might be switched to some kind of slot receiver like Josh Reed under Coach Saban at LSU?
All right, Rick, good questions.
Listen for your comments.
All right, buddy. We'll start with Robert Foster. Now, when you say breakout year, does that mean he's going to catch 60 balls? I don't know, because they got so many receivers. I do think he's going to have a good year. I think he's a quality player. I think he's hung in here. He's a fifth-year senior. Yes, I think he's going to have a good season.
Yeah, I mean, the table's set, certainly. I think if you watched A-Day, he had several big plays, and I think that's, what you're hoping to get from Robert Foster, and consistency. I mean, if he can stay consistent, do what he's supposed to do, then I think he's going to have a really good year.
And on Josh Jacobs right now, of course, the concern, Rick, is the hamstring. I mean, we don't know if he's going to be able to play. He's been limited at practice, but if he plays or when he does get into the lineup, yeah, I think they're going to move him around. I think he's still going to play running back, but you could see him in the slot. You could see him out wide. I think they're going to do a lot of stuff formationally to try to get mismatches. And, yeah, I think he's a guy that they could use. I don't know if, Josh Reed was a great wide receiver. I don't know. I don't think Jacobs is ever going to be a receiver, but he can catch the ball.
Yeah, he can. He's very versatile, but he's a tremendous running back. And, that's, of course, I know what he's referring to because Josh Reed went to LSU as a running back. So
yeah, but wound up as a receiver.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think Jacobs is going to be moved full-time to receiver.
No.
But we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. I'll tell you that. And I do think they want to get him the football. That's for sure. All right, thanks for the phone calls. Thanks for the emails. And thanks for the tweets. We're going to come back with more Tider Insider TV right after this timeout. It's a little bit overcast, but it's a nice evening in Tuscaloosa. Football's in the air. I'd tell you that if it was 120 degrees out right now. Football's here. We're back after this. Mark Ingram, I covered him, you covered him. He's a real deal. And I'm not talking about just as a football player. I'm talking about as a human being. And recently, he and his Saints teammate, offensive tackle Taron Armstead, handed out backpacks to New Orleans area students as part of a back-to-school giveaway that the two organized on their own. Ingram, of course, has become a mainstay in New Orleans, not just on the Saints football team, but in the community as well. Saints rookies Darius Victor, Trey Edmonds, and John Robinson Woodgett joined the two stars to help out at the event. And since I've known Mark Ingram since he got here as a freshman in 2008 out of East Lansing, Michigan, he has been a guy that has done everything the right way, on and off the field. I mean, he is a role model for a lot of these athletes in how to conduct yourself. Even when he was a freshman, 18 years old, he had a maturity about him that you don't see too often.
He really did. You knew when he was coming out of high school, Gary, I mean, he was serious. Of course, now he had the benefit, too, of his dad being a great pro player, so he had that exposure and so forth. But you're right. He was ready to go from day one.
And that's a worthwhile event that he organized recently. All right, Rodney, it is almost time for our picks. Before we get to them, I've had some emails. I know you've had a lot of questions about it. Alabama fans want to know everything when it comes to the game. Alabama will be the home team. So they will be wearing the crimson jerseys in this game. Florida State will be the visitor. I'm kind of disappointed. I just love the all white.
Yeah,
I love white on white. But it looks good in the crimson, too. So Alabama will be the home team. All right, buddy. Last season, we were perfect up until the final game in the national championship game. We picked Alabama to win all 15, and they almost did. But they started off this season with a real toughie. Alabama is about a 7.5 point favorite. Go ahead and give us your breakdown and prediction on the tie in the Seminoles Saturday night in Hot Atlanta.
Well, we've waited a long time to do this, Gary. And, when you start looking at this game, I mean, clearly, in my opinion, I think it's the best opponent Alabama's faced in one of these neutral site games since they've started doing this, since 2008, I guess it was, when they opened with Clemson. And, Florida State's a fantastic team. Some Alabama fans, some people in the media think that the Tide's going to roll in a big way, and they might. But I'm telling you, FSU's an outstanding team. Jimbo Fisher's going to have them ready. You look at Alabama defensively, as I mentioned, a lot of new faces there that I think FSU's going to attack. I think on the other side, Alabama has a new offensive coordinator. how long will it take them to start clicking, to get on the same page? That's a question. Gary mentioned about the new place kicker. I mean, a lot of new faces on this Alabama team. We really don't know how they're going to respond, but I tell you, I still think when you look at 1-85, Alabama is a better football team than Florida State. And, hey, Florida State's really good, but I'm going with Alabama 31-21.
I like that because I'm on the same page with you as far as the quality of the opponent in this game, Rodney. I think Florida State's good. And I can't forget that Alabama lost 7 starters off that defense to the National Football League. I can't forget that they're trying to find out who their kicker is. I can't forget that they're going to have a new right tackle and really a new left tackle too, because Jonah Williams moves over, although I know he can handle that spot. And I can't forget that the last 2 times Alabama's played a team from the ACC, they won 1 and they lost 1. And Clemson was a great football team with a great quarterback. I don't know that DeAndre Francois is as good as Deshaun Watson. In fact, I don't think he is, but he's good. They have playmakers. They're physical. They have, Jimbo Fisher says he didn't copy Nick Saban, but I do think he used the formula to build a football team. Kind of from the inside out, from the interior lines out to the specialist and the skill people. They're really, really good. I think this is a fourth quarter game. I think it's even closer than you think it's going to be, Rodney. I like Alabama to win it, but I think it's going to be right down to the wire. I hope I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. I gave them a pad touchdown there at the end.
I hope they're cruising in the fourth quarter. I hope they're cruising in the second quarter. I just don't see it. I think Florida State's the real deal, and I think it'll be all Alabama can do to win this game.
Absolutely.
One thing's for sure, we'll find out next Saturday, or this Saturday night, next Tuesday on Tider Insider TV.
Well, listen, I think they may play twice this year.
They could. Could very well do it. So, all right, that's our predictions. We'll find out what happens on Saturday night. Once again, as always, our beautiful shirts and ties tonight, provided by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original Elf and Wear. Rodney, you and me just got the chance to go by there this past week and pick up a new allotment of stuff for the fall. They've got some incredible stuff in there. See Alex and Rush and the great staff at the Locker Room in person or shop online at locker-room.biz. The Locker Room downtown Tuscaloosa, they'll take care of their customers. Customer service is what they're all about. You'll look your best when you visit the Locker Room. All right, if you missed the show, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30, or you can find it anytime at WVUA23.com. A reminder, Crimson Tide kickoff live from Atlanta Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Join us then. That's all for TITV. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you again next week.